a trembling finger. Look at that. They look like the number 10. And then Reba woke up. She sat up in her bed, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She looked around the familiar shadows of her bedroom, the soft moonlight filtering through the blinds. She let out a massive, shaky breath, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead. Oh, thank God. She whispered into the quiet night. It was just a nightmare. The morning arrived, bringing with it the harsh reality of daylight. Reba dragged herself into the kitchen, the remnants of the strange dream still clinging to the edges of her mind. She started pulling out the blender, reaching for spinach, protein powder, and whatever fruits she could find. She was determined to take control, to impose order on her life and her health. Just as the blender roared to life, the front door opened. "Yoo-hoo," a voice called out, exactly as it had in the dream. "I am here, and I am thin." Reba froze, her hand hovering over the off switch of the blender. She slowly turned her head. There, standing in the doorway, was Barbara Jean. She was radiant, practically glowing, and indeed, she was incredibly thin. Reba closed her eyes for a brief second. "And the nightmare continues," she muttered under her breath. Barbara Jean glided into the room, seemingly floating on a cloud of self-satisfaction. A song seemed to emanate from her very being, an anthem of personal triumph. "My roots are planted in the past," she sang softly, dramatically tossing her newly styled hair. "Though my life is changing fast, who I am is who I want to be." She struck a pose by the refrigerator. A single mom who works too hard, who loves her kids and never stops. She placed a hand over her heart, looking deeply moved by her own performance. With gentle hands and the heart of a fighter, she struck a final, triumphant pose. "I am a survivor." Ben walked into the kitchen, entirely unfazed by the theatrical display. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and looked at Reba. "Mom, make us some pancakes," he requested, his voice thick with morning grogginess. Reba turned off the blender, the green sludge inside settling menacingly. "No," she stated firmly. "I am making everyone a power smoothie, and this afternoon I am taking a power walk." She poured the thick, vibrant green liquid into 2 tall glasses, setting them on the counter with a definitive thud. Van ambled in, catching the tail end of the conversation. "Power walk?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, forget your power cane." Cheyenne, following close behind, immediately jumped to her mother's defense. "Van, that is not nice," she scolded him gently. "Mom does aerobics." Van shrugged, grabbing a glass of the green smoothie and eyeing it with deep suspicion. "She could shatter her hip," he pointed out practically, ignoring the glare Reba shot him. Reba leaned across the counter, her eyes narrowing. "And yet, in the blink of an eye, I can make you both homeless," she reminded them sweetly, a masterclass in maternal negotiation. Before the argument could escalate, the door swung open again. Brock walked in, looking exactly as he always did, slightly flustered and completely unaware of the shifting dynamics in the room. "Hey, everybody," he greeted cheerfully. Barbara Jean immediately spun around, striking another pose. "I am here and I am." Reba did not miss a beat. "Oh, shut up and have a donut," she interrupted, sliding a box of pastries across the counter. Barbara Jean gasped, clutching her pearls in mock horror. "Oh, Reba," she said, her voice dripping with pity. "You are not still trying to lose weight by drinking those power smoothies, are you?" She gestured to the green liquid with a manicured finger. "Jordan, my trainer, says that those are loaded with hidden carbs." Reba took a slow, deliberate sip of her smoothie, maintaining eye contact. "Barbara Jean," she began, her voice steady and calm, "I am all for adopting a healthy new lifestyle. But seriously, there has to be some sort of—" She stopped, noticing Brock. He was standing frozen, his eyes glued to Barbara Jean. "Will you stop staring at her?" Reba snapped, breaking his trance. Brock blinked rapidly, looking caught off guard. "What?" he stammered. We have been staring at her for like the past 2 hours. He gestured vaguely at the rest of the family, seeking backup. Well, she is pretty. Barbara Jean beamed, soaking up the compliment like a thirsty flower. I am pretty, she agreed enthusiastically. Brock nodded, stepping closer. Well, of course you are, he said, his voice softening. You have always been pretty, but she is new pretty. Van let out a sharp, unexpected laugh. Oh, Van, he chuckled to himself, that is such a funny story you can tell to your next wife. Barbara Jean turned to Van, her eyes wide and sparkling. Van, you really think that I am new pretty? She asked, genuinely seeking his validation. Van nodded solemnly, examining her like a work of art. Oh yeah, he confirmed. You are like a bleached-out Halle Berry.
Barbara Jean gasped in pure delight.
Thank you, she squealed, clapping her hands together. Van nodded, picking up his smoothie again. You are welcome. I am going to go make some calls, he announced, turning to leave the kitchen. Brock watched him go, a sudden wave of insecurity washing over him. He turned back to Barbara Jean, clearing his throat awkwardly. So, Barbara Jean, he began, his voice dropping an octave. Yeah, she answered, still admiring her reflection in the microwave door. Brock shuffled his feet. Is it true that when you lose a bunch of weight, you want to do, you know? He trailed off, making a vague, bouncing motion with his hands.
Bounce ka bounce.
Cheyenne, who had been quietly watching the exchange, suddenly looked crestfallen. Van, she called out, a hint of sadness in her voice. Van poked his head back into the kitchen. Oh, Cheyenne, do not be upset, he said quickly, rushing over to her side. You are still hot. He wrapped an arm around her, looking for the right words. You are like a bleached-out Jan Brady. Yes.
Januari Jan Brady.
Cheyenne's face fell further. I am Marcia. She corrected him, her voice rising in frustration.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
She turned and stomped out of the room, leaving Van looking confused. Barbara Jean, entirely oblivious to the marital tension she had just inadvertently caused, turned her attention back to Reba. So, Reba, I got an idea, she announced, her eyes practically shining with excitement. You should come down to the gymnasium and meet Jordan, my trainer. She leaned in closer, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Seriously, he will change your life. I mean, he is so much more than a personal trainer. He taught me how to work out and eat right. Reba raised an eyebrow, stirring her smoothie with a long spoon. That sounds comprehensive, she noted dryly. Oh, it is, Barbara Jean gushed. We go over the clothes I am going to wear, the movies I am going to see. Reba stopped stirring. Whoa, she interjected, holding up a hand. The movies you are going to see? What does that have to do with you getting in shape? Barbara Jean waved her hand dismissively. Oh, nothing, she giggled. We just have the same sense of humor. That Tim Allen just kills us. I mean, whether he is playing a dog or Santa Claus, you just buy it. She sighed happily, a dreamy look on her face. So, you will come meet Jordan? Reba took another sip of her drink, shaking her head firmly. No. Barbara Jean pouted, her lower lip jutting out. Oh, come on, Reba. I want my best girlfriend to meet my best boyfriend. She slapped her hands over her mouth, her eyes widening in horror. Boyfriend? Oh, whoops. That came out wrong. Reba stared at her, the silence stretching out awkwardly. Well, thanks anyway, Reba said finally, her tone polite but firm. But I am just going to be here with my smoothie. She took a large gulp, trying to mask a grimace. Delicious, just like fruit gravy. Later that afternoon, Brock wandered into the living room, looking like a lost puppy. He found Reba sitting on the sofa, trying to read a magazine but mostly just staring blankly at the page. Oh hey, Barbara Jean, he called out before realizing his mistake. I mean Reba. Reba looked up over her reading glasses. Here you are, she sighed, closing the magazine. Brock walked over, sitting heavily in the armchair opposite her. Listen, how would you like to go out and grab a quick lunch? Just the two of us, he suggested, his voice uncharacteristically tentative. Reba looked at him, surprised by the offer. Oh, honey, I cannot.